Yeah, it's one of those days. So let's go over all the important things. Um, Talk about the title. I have breaking news for everyone. Aquarium Co-op is going bankrupt. I'm buying the Fluval Corporation, aka Rolf C. Hagen Corporation. Uh, this that okay. So I'm gonna go on a little bit of a rant, and then we'll just like kind of chill and relax, and I'll have some fun. I hate April Fool's Day. I've hated April Fool's Day since I was a kid. I work in the tech industry and have been a gamer for a long time, where everybody and their mother tries to do some dumb, stupid thing on April Fool's Day. And I hate it. I hate it so much because it's just like such a waste of time. And nobody's actually like having fun with any of this stuff. Like at least on the prank side of things, like when somebody puts out a good joke, it's fun. But like I don't know, man. I can't. Maybe this is like the curmudgeony old man that I've become, but I can't stand it. It's like, why waste my time with this stuff? It is. Thankfully, I think it's become less and less of a thing over the last few years. Because, like, as an example, right? I used to play a lot of World of Warcraft, and Blizzard as a company has always put up something on April Fool's Day, which is usually lighthearted and kind of funny. But they also very purposefully play on things that they know the community wants. So it kind of just makes fun of the community because they know the community wants some of these things. And we all know it's April Fool's Day, so none of this is true. And then they'll put out stuff that is very in line with what the community wants, right? And that's like the lighthearted stuff. I've seen plenty of stupid like sports meme nonsense. Like for you football fans, it was like Dak Prescott's getting traded to the blah blah blah, and it's like no one's trading for Dak Prescott. Let's be honest here. No team is making that trade. He is paid way more than he should be for the caliber of player he is. And sorry, Cowboys fans. I know there's a few of you. Leo, my buddy. I just got to give it to you truthful. Right? And it's like, there's all sorts of dumb stuff that comes out. It drives me insane. It's actually April Fool's Day, the international yarn holiday we all love. Would be more in line with that than I ever could possibly be with all the April Fool's BS. But yeah, so now you know on this April 1st of 2025 that I am a secret crypto billionaire and I'm going to buy out the Fluval Corporation. Yeah. Totally truthful. Dak Prescott is a future Hall of Famer. Okay. Okay. We'll see about that. I'm not convinced. He's not that good. And he plays for Jerry Boy, so you know. Anyway, we'll get off football. We'll get off football. That's a very inflammatory subject sometimes. Tush push for the win. Uh, that will probably get banned in the sense of safety because I'm sure there's injury requirements and all that kind of stuff. Barbara Jackson, rainbow fish are actually swimming upside down. Check it out. Look at them. They look like regular fish when viewed upside down. So, you're not wrong in that their bodies are so shaped and they are just funky in their body shape to begin with that you could flip them upside down and they'd probably look right side up. uh, Amazon pancakes. Nobody's been injured by it yet. There's certainly got to be a risk based on what's going on and how it moves a pile of human beings. Like something will happen at some point. But yeah, I doubt it'll get banned now, but I have a feeling eventually that it's very controversial, right? It's like a 50-50 split in the NFL. But yeah, so on a truthful note, truthful note, I'm working on an update to the Algae Buster challenge. I kind of read everybody's feedback when I did the fish room tour, and it seemed like a lot of people wanted to keep that going. So after this Saturday's video, we'll go back to having a short every Friday. And we might have a short this Friday too, which will kind of half spoil Saturday's video, but that's fine. That's fine. But I'm for those of you watching and those of you in the replay crew, I know most of you are the ones who are like really active in the videos, and I appreciate the hell out of you folks. I really want your feedback on this Saturday's video. I have this psychotic idea in my head, and I filmed like half of it already. I need to finish filming the rest of it and then get it all edited together. I just want to see if like the crazy idea that popped into my brain as I was running a bunch of errands is something that you guys like. So basically, it'll be a portion of the video. I should be very clear. A portion of the video will be a completely different style of video than you guys are used to out of me. Hopefully you enjoy it. I think it's potentially very lighthearted and fun, but we'll see. Someone might think it's stupid and only want me for informational content. I don't know. I don't know. But hopefully you guys enjoy it. Amazon Pancakes, did you set up the new AquaClear? So my last 2 weekends have been way busier than I thought. I'm trying to jam that in, basically put. And I know it seems like it's setting up a filter. How hard can it be? The biggest problem is actually like rearranging a couple things in the tank and getting the old filters off. Because like I have a bacterial colony in the substrate and all that kind of stuff. I'm not really worried about that. It's mostly been like getting rid of the current dirty and water-filled filters. That just takes a little bit of time, and I've been... So I think I mentioned this to you guys, like, the office I work in got changed, and so I have an extra, like, half hour each way worth of driving, so I'm just getting home later and later, and, yeah, that has not been fun, to say the least. So I have less time at my home, and, yeah, it's not fun. Anyway, trying to get that done. Hopefully... my goal is this week. I have a club auction this week too, and I don't even know if I'm going to it. I missed the last one because of some family stuff, and I haven't gone to like club meetings for the last, I think, 3 months because it's coincided with stuff I've had planned for a long period of time, like multiple months in a row. So it's so funny. I lobbied really hard with my club to get meetings to Saturdays because I knew that would bring more people in and it would be easier for me to go to. And then I have missed, like, I think 4 months worth of meetings on Saturdays because I've been too busy. Why does that figure, right? I have to laugh at it because I think it's silly. The AquaClear 110 is my favorite AquaClear. That motor is bigger and seems to fail less in my experience. I would agree, Regina. I think that it's the most robust of them all, but it's also the one that has the least change from the kind of like upgrade. Basically, the only thing that changed in the 110 is the tube, because the lid doesn't have the like the porting that the lids for all the other size AquaClears do. The tray is basically exactly the same. That hasn't been changed. The motor is the same. The body is the same. It's almost no change. Just you have a little tiny intake filter, which is too tiny for an AquaClear 110, let's be honest. And then the tube is slightly different. That intake tube matters a lot. The other thing I need to publish is some of my like power on and power off testing to do like simulating power outages with the AquaClears and like kind of their new design to see how much better they reprime themselves. The short answer is pretty well, honestly. Like it's a big improvement. It's not perfect, but it is quite a big improvement. When you got your club, finally they say new club, who dis? I mean, kind of in a way, right? Oh man, interpretive dance video. I assume no one wants to see me do interpretive dance. Let's be honest, it will be bad. I was a DJ in high school and college because I can't dance. Also, I enjoyed it. It was a very fun business job, but not enough to ever. I wasn't so into it that I wanted to ever pursue it as a career, other than like the radio side of DJ, not like DJ in a club, right? Celebrate with me. I came up with a new one-two punch against Staghorn, 3 times dose of Flourish XL, then blackout for 3 days. I giggled like a psycho seeing all of the new red Staghorn. My only I'm assuming you're doing three days dosing worth of Excel and not like 3 times the dose, Laura, because there is some potential risk at doing like excessive dosing of glutaraldehyde in an aquarium, and now they're going to make it a lot harder to get glutaraldehyde products, which could be interesting, right? But I'm assuming what you did is you dosed for 3 days, and then you did your blackout, which is a cool combo. I like the concept, and it worked for you, obviously, so that's good. DJ Bentley Rainbow Fish. No, definitely not my DJ name. I used to have. I don't can't remember the password to it anymore. But I used to have like a really old Yahoo email for my DJ business. Man, this is like side business I ran in high school and college, so it's not like I actually did it correctly. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and I got to hire some of my friends. 3 days in Haddon Harrison. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Um, you know, I will say this, Laura. I didn't ever think about that kind of combo because whenever I've dealt with Staghorn, I spot dose. I have done blackouts before if it's really prolific. I've done that for a couple of different types of algae in the past, and I've always found the place where I do blackouts the most is cyanobacteria, because cyanobacteria dies very, very fast without light. Like 3 days with no light, and cyanobacteria is just toast. Or at least in my experience. Put it that way, in my experience. And thankfully, the last time I dealt with cyanobacteria is like a year and a half ago now, so hopefully it doesn't come back. But yeah, I'm all over the place. If you can't tell, my brain is everywhere tonight. So chat, strap in. It's going to be a wild one. Oh, man. More to living. Flow is determined by how many times you would like to rotate the entire water column, usually 3 to 10 times per hour, and the current in the tank. Current is really hard to achieve with a hang-on back filter. I'm only thinking about that last statement, more to living, because I feel like you can get reasonable current with a hang-on back filter. However, the requirement is usually that you have a significantly larger hang-on back than what is designed, and I put this in big quotation marks, for the tank. As an example, a 40-gallon breeder with an AquaClear 110 sat on the side creates a pretty good column of flow throughout that aquarium, because you have a relatively big blade of water coming in, and as long as you're keeping your surface levels high, so that water is traveling across all the way to the glass and down and not doing a big like waterfall dip down into the tank, it creates a pretty good flow. And you can do the same thing with the tidal. It's actually kind of easier with the tidal just because of how it's designed, but both of these aquariums do that, or both of these filters do that very well on the same size aquarium, the 40-gallon breeder. I put AquaClear and Tidal 110s on my 40 breeders all the time. The only time I'm not doing it is with the new guppy tank that used to be our Undergravel experiment, because that's too much flow for the guppies. So, yeah. And because the tank's not as big as the soon-to-be previous guppy mansion, there's not an area so far down the tank that the flow stops being quite a lot and gives them kind of like a rest zone, so to speak. And then lower, and also height of the tank, right? There's not a lower region where they get a reasonable rest zone because I'm using an overflow. So the water that is returning in is up top, and coming back into the tank and going out of the tank are both up high. So it creates kind of a zone on the far end of the tank, especially down low, where there's a lot less flow, which has a positive and negative, don't get me wrong, but for that tank it works really well. Are those the famous purple guppies? I don't have purple guppies. I have blue Hawaiian Moscows, aka a blue guppy. They do occasionally show a kind of purple iridescence, but their primary color is blue. Very, very dark, not quite cobalt blue or navy blue, although honestly, when you see them at full color and happy, cobalt blue is the color I'm most reminded of. But definitely darker than, say, like French blue, if you're familiar with French blue. I don't know a better way to describe it. It's a reasonably dark, but very saturated blue color. So yeah. I don't know. There's got to be someone who actually has like a purple colony, but I don't have specifically what would be deemed a purple guppy. So like purple Moscows or something like that. Mine are a blue. A blue variant. Parts for Fluval just not easily obtained. I mean, you for a while it was relatively easy to order off their website in the United States. I totally understand that in Jamaica that's a lot different. Which, good to see you, by the way, Fish Keeping Jamaica. It's been a while, buddy. I hope you're doing okay. Okay. Brain and mouth did not sync up on that one. Just fell apart at the tail end. This is what really long commutes and a overly stressed job environment does to you. But yeah, so let's see here. What else can we talk about? By the way, if you guys have questions, like, go nuts, right? Largy, we'll follow up on the staghorn thing here. I basically spot dosed bad spots 3 days in a row. Figured it'd weaken it, then black out. Also did a water change before and after. Yeah, because you're going to have it like in the system a little bit and kind of ran things around, all that kind of stuff. And then there's a follow-up also from Mortal Living. For example, Fluval FX6 is rated for 400 gallons. I can assure you that running it on a 75 does not actually rotate with that amount of water. Maybe 4 times an hour. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if it's running optimally, it pulls a lot of water through its system, but it's pretty easy to like either tamper down the flow or do things that would reduce the amount of flow coming into the intake. So like as an example, in my retirement tank, I built a wall of dragonstone when I first set that tank up, and there's a gap where the inlet, or sorry, the intake for my FX6 hides behind the rock. So there's kind of like this wall where water has to move up and over that wall and down in. I mean, granted, it's going through the gaps and stuff too. Don't get me wrong, but it has to do some additional movement. So there is kind of an inherent restriction of flow, right? Whereas if I had it as open as, say, the tank that brother-in-law James is doing, where it's just like right there on the opposite side in a shorter distance, that can move quite a lot of water. Now, is it giving us like true turnover? Probably not. But is it cycling through a pretty reasonable amount of water, and is it a fairly powerful filter for that size tank? Yeah. Is it overkill? Not really. Can it be, depending on the fish you're keeping? Yes. Right? It's all those things. It's like I think it's so important because so little do we take the context of, basically, I like to refer to it as it depends. Because you could go like very straightforward with something and say like X, Y, and Z. But if you don't account for certain variables, like, well, what do your fish actually like that much flow? Right? Or is it even aligning the intake and outlet of the aquarium in a way that optimizes what that filter is supposed to do to get more flow, right? Because if you have the inlet and outlet on the same side of the tank trying to do like this style flow, right? Or vice versa, you're probably not going to get like maximum turnover in the tank. But if water is constantly pushing directly at the inlet, the amount of turnover will increase. Does that make sense? Because you're kind of like, think of it like supercharging a car. You're pushing additional things into the intake, right? And not everybody understands how a supercharger works. Probably a bad analogy. I know. Sorry. But I'm a car person, as the name should suggest. And thus, it's one of the things that makes most sense to me. Eh? Oh, man. How much nitrate do you run in your planted tanks? So, I like keeping mine kind of lean. And I've had a recent actually issue in Running River, or not Running River, in Fallen Forest. So my tank that I did with my wife, I run into an issue with that where the nitrates are getting too high. And while the fish didn't necessarily care, what was starting to happen is, and I'm currently dealing with it, is all the Anubias that was looking amazing in that tank started shedding leaves and having rhizome issues because they don't necessarily like really high nitrate levels. So I've been dealing with trying to dilute that down and chill it out. So basically, I haven't dosed any fertilizer as an example, despite the fact that it has CO2. Nitrates built up a little too high. So I'm doing like extra water changes, and rather than doing just top-offs, I'm doing like full-on 50% water changes, which is not something that I do every week. I typically do like a good 50% water change once a month-ish. Just because all my tanks are so heavily planted, I don't necessarily need a full-on water change every week. Right? But when I start noticing things that are indications of problems, I break out my tests, I look at my numbers, and that tells me what I need to start doing. So, for me, optimal is I'm always reading somewhere between 10 and 20 parts per million. That was when I used to, like, when I was doing a lot of my Plants for Profit series, when I was really heavily plant farming, I would dose fertilizer every day in a small amount to try and keep a continuous, lean amount of nutrients in the system so that my plants are constantly working, right? I don't do that as much right now. So, yeah. 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 Hopefully that helps. I think 20 to 40 is okay. It's when you start getting above a like consistent like 60 parts per million or higher is where I would consider water changing and trying to dilute that down. Anywhere between like 10 and 40 parts per million in the water system is usually fine. I personally like 10 to 20. That's kind of like my goal target if I was trying to do everything perfect. Barbara Jackson. If I lower the temp in my 40 gallon from 78 to maybe 72 to 74 over a few days, will that slow down my diamond tetras so I can catch the crazy fast brats? I want to move them, and it's not going well. Um, Let me ask you this question. Have you tried the two net method? Right? Where you use one net to kind of slowly corral them toward the other net. I know they're very fast, and that's kind of a harder thing to do. But what I found is if I use two kind of larger nets, I can use one to scare them toward the other, and then kind of trap them. And while it's not perfect, that's what I tend to do with rainbow fish because they're very fast when they want to be. And it works very well to catch them. Otherwise, what I would say is turning down the temperature some should help you a little, but I don't know that's a significant amount. It might be easier to remove a large amount of the water, assuming you don't have a ton of hardscape in the way, and get it to where they just have less room to move around so that your net kind of more forces them into certain spaces. And Aquarium Fun is also kind of suggesting the same thing. Those would be the approaches I would take. Mortal Living, you meant to say turbo. Yeah, I guess turbo is more what people are used to, but supercharger does kind of the same thing. The difference is superchargers versus turbos. Like turbos recycle air, if I remember correctly, whereas a supercharger just pushes more air in. But yeah. Amazon Pancakes, is there any old aquarium memorabilia you collect? Books, magazines, tanks, etc. Not really. I do have kind of like a small collection of like posters, but they're typically all rainbow fish posters. And at some point when I can set up something more permanent, I will have just a ton of posters all over the place. I also have a small collection of books, but they usually are books that I really like the photography within them, as opposed to the content. So like I have an Amano book because I love the photography inside it. I have Karen Randall's book because I love the photography in her book. I have, what else do I have down there? I've got a couple different ones. I've of course got my plant Bible because that book's just amazing and does have very good photography. Oh, I have George's book because I love the photography in George's book. You know, I don't try to collect too much memorabilia. And part of that is part of this is kind of tied to something I've been doing over the last like 10-ish years, which is that I used to collect, and I still collect certain things, do not get me wrong, but I just used to collect way too much stuff between like Magic and role-playing games and retro games and I just had tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff. And I've gotten to a point now where like I don't care about having as many material things, and I kind of want more of them to go away. But what I do like is if I find something that I find particularly interesting that I want to like have somewhere to be visible, like say like in the background of a live stream or in like my eventual fish room, the dream that is in my head and maybe will never become reality. I don't like saying that in that way, but sometimes I wonder. Anyway, you know, I have things that I want for those kind of places, and I try to pick like one or two things that are either very meaningful to me or have some kind of semblance of nostalgia towards something that mattered to me. So, like as an example, this is not the fish hobby, so this is where it gets a little abstract, but my other hobby, which is whiskey, right? Right now, my main two hobbies. There used to be way back in like the 70s, mostly the 70s for this particular one. It was really popular to have decanters in all sorts of different shapes or collaborations with different companies and things like that. We've gotten away from that, but they used to be these like popular presents. Like you'd order decanters from a Sears catalog and gift it to a friend, and often they would like never drink the whiskey inside. It would just have the cool decanter because it looked interesting. Maybe it looks like a sports car or some kind of iconic things. There's ones like the Seattle Space Needle. Well, there were ones that were collaborations with some of the like semi trucks that are out there, like Mack or Peterbilt or things like that, right? And my mom's dad, so my maternal grandfather, he was a long haul truck driver. And despite the fact that he had a horrible alcohol problem, I still like, I kind of want a like truck themed whiskey thing to go in what will be my eventual kind of like storage area, bar, whatever you want to call it, to kind of just represent my granddad. Because I know it exists in a hobby that I like, and it has kind of a symbolism to a part of my life in some way, shape, or form. So, like, as an example, I love having this angelfish poster that is the art from Fishtoberfest, because angels are a big part of my family's fish keeping, and all the way back to my great-grandmother, right? So, like, having something that represents, as opposed to just being a nice piece of art, which it is, it's very pretty, it represents something that is close to my family and how aquatics kind of got into me eventually, right? So, like, things like that matter to me, but, like, full-on just collecting for the sake of collecting, like, say, Eric Bodrock, right? He has this amazing vintage collection of all the like different things you could put in your aquarium or old air pumps and types of equipment from like way back in the day, right? I'm never going to be that guy. I'm not going to like have a museum of doodads, but I might have one or two things that like have some weird symbolic meaning to me as opposed to like, a giant like rack of tchotchkes. It's the only way I can think to say it. So I know I took way too long to answer that, but I hope that explains like the craziness that is inside my brain. Paul Soltero, good to see you, buddy. I've been very happy with the two Owaze Biomaster Thermal 250s I have. The pre-filter column sponges make maintenance a breeze, unlike the Fluval 307, and the internal heater is a bonus. I have seen a few people forget to turn off the internal heater when doing their service and then like melting parts of the lid. So as long as you're like, and I know you're doing this meticulously, and I'm not stressed about that, but I think that's one of the things that I have to caution a lot of people is like the internal heater is great. Just don't forget to turn it off at the same time you turn off the filter, because if water's not moving, things get hot and stuff starts to melt, because that plastic only handles so much heat. Otherwise, I agree with you. I think when I changed my 60 PPI, yes, PPI, pre-filters into the 40s, I liked my Awaze a lot more. Now, granted, my Awaze is kind of like slowly giving up the ghost, but it's been running for several years. I still wish it would not make me vaguely paranoid that it's about to die. Repriming it is kind of a nightmare. I'll put it that way. Once it's primed and running, it runs like a champion. But when I go to service it and then have to reprime it, it really struggles. But such is the way of things. Eventually, you have problems. They're so saying diamond tetras are little bastards. They're fast, man. A lot of those tetras are sneaky fast. Stephen P., what is your take on nutrient antagonism in aquatic plants? E.g., for example, if you will, too much potassium blocking magnesium. I've yet to run into a scenario where it caused deficiency. I've dosed 100 ppm of potassium. So, let me put it to you like this. I am so uneducated about which nutrients are antagonistic toward other nutrients other than the interaction with iron specifically, that I just don't care. I probably sound like a madman saying that, but like I've never experienced something where it wasn't a obvious I let something get out of hand in one way, shape, or form. Like, oh, I have a tank that has a load of Java Fern in it, and my potassium is low, so they all have little holes in them, right? It's never been like, I dosed too much of this and that. I've never had that. It's been more obvious things where like I got too busy and I wasn't as meticulous in my dosing or something, and that's when I saw something fall off. Or like currently what I'm dealing with some of my Anubiuses in Fallen Forest, right? Which side tangent, I know, Bentley, keep it straight, but I just can't do it. When I was editing my fish room tour and I kept calling Fallen Forest Running River, I was sitting here cringing editing it, and I got really tempted because I'd watched a recent video from another creator that I really liked that I thought was funny, where every time he said the wrong word, he would cut to himself and like just basically berate himself in like little 2-second snippets. I got really tempted to throw that in, but I didn't want to like mess with the flow of the tour because I just wanted it to be kind of like I wanted it to feel very unedited and free. So it was more like you guys are in the fish room with me as opposed to like a more highly edited video. But maybe the highly edited video would have been more entertaining. I don't freaking know. But yeah, basically put, I'm so uneducated about which are antagonistic to others that I've either A, never encountered it, or B, was unaware I encountered it and had fixed the problem a different method anyway that seemed more obvious. So, you pick your poison there. Turbos work off of exhaust. Yeah, so turbos are recycling air, effectively speaking. They're using air that is exiting the system, exhaust, and pushing it back into the system to gain additional power. Right? Where a supercharger is just pulling in more fresh air. It's not pulling in, it's compressing it. I know. Rotary girl immediately, but my supercharger thing was right. All right? All right? Just let me have this. I need it. It's been rough. All right? I've had a rough couple weeks at work. Okay. Homemade fish trap. I would be curious what kind of homemade fish trap you would use for diamond tetras. Mike, now you have to make a video and show us a homemade fish trap. Secretly, I'm trying to get people on YouTube's. Okay, I'm trying to play catch up. I know I'm way behind. Sorry. Zen Ginger. I missed the first few minutes, so you may have mentioned it already, but how's wifey doing these days? Great. So she has a follow-up. It's the secondary follow-up after her surgery with her surgeon and the team next week. And then she starts some physical therapy. It's technically considered occupational therapy, but it's physical therapy. And the big thing is making sure that it limits the amount of scar tissue that builds up through here, because if people aren't doing enough, if they're being too relaxed about trying to build the muscles back up, so to speak, after the surgery, you can get a lot of scar tissue in there that can inhibit some of your movement and cause other problems. But she's been really good about like kind of constantly wiggling her fingers a little bit and doing basically like micro exercises to keep things activated lightly so that they're healing up and getting back to in shape, so to speak. We'll put this in quotation marks, right? It's because it's not like you're building muscle. You're just kind of like making sure that everything retrains itself during its healing. But overall, very, very good. Lots of positive progress. I anticipate that everything going forward will go really, really well, and she'll be back to pretty much normal here relatively soon, because we're pretty deep in the healing process at this point, she's been doing great. She's been doing great. Coro works. Do you have room in your weird project list for a reverse flow Undergravel system yet? I'm gonna be honest with you, Coro. I'm never doing that. I said it. Never doing it. I I would be more likely to run a bunch of Undergravels powered off of power heads than I ever would be to do a reverse flow. Because you keep in mind, right? A majority of the plants that I like to keep are root feeders. So it behooves me to bring waste down into the substrate rather than in reverse and push water up through, right? So while, yes, reverse flow does eventually do the same thing, it's a more direct, simple system that is easier to run off of air. It's symbiotic in a more direct, simple, brain-dead way. And that's how I work. I'm simple and brain-dead. But, yeah, I've never... Anytime I've looked at, like, the basics of understanding how the reverse flow works, and I know it's not that complicated, I've just kind of always been like, eh? I mean, by all means, if you've got a video that should convince me otherwise, send it to my email. Send it to my email. I'll look at stuff, but I've never seen something so convincing that makes me be like, I want to try that. As opposed to just being like, I guess that's interesting, but why? Right? So, it's all what hits your brain. It just doesn't hit my brain in the way that goes like, ooh, shiny, Whereas like Undergravel, I like because it's very OG and classic and has a really good function in a planted tank if you're doing it correctly. Moto Guppy, good old bourbon. I have a few over that way. Yeah. I might have too many bottles at my desk, but I also like barely drink them, so I have like one little pour each each night, especially if I've got work to do. I've got something to sip on while I'm working. When I'm editing, there's always a little pour of bourbon sitting beside me. I get like do work, take a little sip, do a bunch of work, take a little sip. So when you see mistakes, you know it's the booze is talking. If it's not perfect, blame it on my bourbon and not on me. Clearly, never my fault. I would never take responsibility. Ah, Lord. I have to laugh at things, otherwise the world gets depressing. Make sure I didn't miss something else, but Adam, I see your comment. You're probably next. Amazon Pancakes, great answer. It's so interesting to understand what brought us all to the aquarium hobby. Angelfish were big in my family as well. My mom's favorite fish. Yeah, it's probably my mom's. My mom has a big affinity. When I did not have my Leopoldi angels years and years ago, my mom, every time she would come visit, would be like, "Where are your angelfish?" Just basically bullying me to get angelfish in one of my aquariums. And I had a goal of getting Leopoldis at one point. I was just sourcing them. I was waiting for them because I wanted wild caught ones, because at the time they weren't being as actively bred locally. If I had locally bred ones, I would be fine with that. But there wasn't really anybody breeding them, to my knowledge, at the time, here in the Seattle area. So when we got to the right season when they were starting being brought in from wild caught, that's when I finally picked up my first group. And then I had angels, and I no longer got bullied about where are your angels. Okay. Adam, did I hear a rumor that Jason from Redfish Bluefish is thinking about opening back up? Yes. I'll just say this straight. Yes. I've already been talking to him about a few things. Part of it is just like so Jason and I are going to do an interview talking about some of like kind of his lessons learned, that if you think about opening a fish store, they aren't the things you would think about right away. And I think that's kind of really interesting from a business perspective, because he got his business fairly successful. It was just a matter of, as his son is getting older, he wanted more family time with his son before his son was like, I'm in high school and I'm not as interested as hanging out with dad, or I'm going off to college or whatever, right? You know how it is. Parents, you understand. For parents, you understand in a different way, right? It's not when they're going off to high school or college. It's when they go from that cute little puppy or that energetic young dog to that just old dog who's like, I just want to take a nap, man. Can you leave me alone? Maybe give some pets a treat. Okay. Let me out every once in a while to go to the bathroom. We're good. Cool. I'm going to take a nap now. Right? But yeah. So he's had some changes of some stuff and just some stuff going on in his life, and kind of has the itch to like really push potentially, like, I think full time instead of following his tech career. I'll know more soon enough. Like, we're going to talk again relatively soon, but I'm reasonably confident he's actually going to open back up, which is cool because I liked that he focused very heavily on like a pistos and a lot of things that aren't as prolific in a lot of other aquarium stores, whether online or in physical retail. He will stay all online though, to my knowledge. Laura, I totally geek out on plants. I was a biology major, and I'll start telling my hubby nerd stuff on plants, and he's like, I'm gonna go wash my hair again. I'm very lucky in that my wife like gets very fascinated when I turbo nerd out about one of my two hobbies. So like, as an example, I have sat and explained like the different genuses of rainbow fish and where they're different and how they tend to be found in what natural habitats. And she's like finds it really fascinating that I'll go into all that. And then similarly, like when I've talked about learning like kind of the crazy chemistry nonsense that is going on, and how like whiskey, when it's in a barrel aging, and how it moves in and out of the wood and it's like extracting wood sugars and all these tannins and all this stuff, and like the like mad scientist experiment that is making alcohol. she's she like really listens and gets really interested in it. And she's like, in the end, almost every time that I go on one of those long tangents, it typically ends with like, "I'm sorry, I nerded out too hard," and she's like, "No, I love when you do," and it's like one of those things I find really special about our relationship because she'll do the same thing. She will nerd out really hard about like Pokemon as an example. I have no clue. Like I'm starting to understand more and more over time, right? As we've been together for we're getting close to 10 years, man. Jeez. Jeez. We will have been dating for 9 years later this year. Time flies, man. Time flies when you're having fun. Or when you're stressed out of your mind. But she'll like nerd out about stuff. And I find it just as fascinating. And I think that's one of the like the really special parts of our relationship is that where there are divergences in our interests, we still are like so supportive and love watching each other like nerd out about the thing that we're really into when it just hits us organically, right? It's like one of the things where we're just like, yeah, I love that nerd. Oh. Stephen P. Just been seeing it pop up in discussions again, and that's the thing. People keep planted tanks for years and don't observe it. What are the odds it's a significant cause of deficiencies? Very slim. Talking about antagonistic relationships in nutrients in our aquariums. Chadius. Hi, Bentley in chat. Hello, Chadius. Hope you're doing well. I am doing mostly well. Yeah, I'd say pretty positive. It's only a few negatives. Mostly commute. But yeah. Also, I'm sorry. I told you guys, I warned you. Tangents are happening a lot tonight. I'm going to be all over the place in a total mental mess. I don't know about the rest of you. And I do not want to get political on this. I want to be very clear. But the rate in my industry, at least, in tech, of jobs being just so blatantly offshored, and then the bigwigs being complaining that there's not enough talent in the United States, so we need to bring more talent into the United States. It's like the absolute villainy of how it's perfectly okay to just jack a company's stock price by ruining the lives of people in the States, which used to not happen, right? It used to be the whole thing was you would work for a company for years. I've seen people who have worked at some of these big companies for 20 plus years recently, and they've always been very good at what they do. Recently getting laid off. And then like within days, there is a post for their job back up. And it's very clearly added a bunch of things that are almost impossible to attain. Because one thing that is really nefarious in the tech industry, and I know this has nothing to do with fish, and I'm sorry, but it's in my head and I gotta get it out. One thing that's really nefarious in the tech industry is they will put something up that's like, we were looking for someone with 5 years of experience in Program X 2024 edition. Well, it's quite literally impossible to have 5 years of experience with the 2024 edition. It's only been out for a year, right? And so they will do this because there is a requirement in the United States, and tech is the biggest abuser of this. Thankfully, a lot of other industries don't abuse this nearly as hard. To where you have to search before you can bring people in, like whether it's H-1Bs or whatever. Before you can bring in talent from outside the United States, you have to put in a legitimate search within the United States. But they don't necessarily validate that the search requirements being used are reasonable. And tech abuses the hell out of this. And it's probably the thing I hate the most about my industry. So they will do that kind of stuff, put up things that have completely impossible requirements so that they can eventually say a month down the road, oh, we couldn't find anybody, but hey, it just so happens we have this person here that we'd like to sponsor. And they typically bring them in for lower wages and all that kind of stuff. Really sucks. It sucks the two-faced side of it, where it's like, it's really clear their whole goal is just to cut costs and jack their stack price. But then they claim that there isn't talent in the United States. Doesn't make any sense. Sorry for that tangent. I apologize. Let us return to fish and not the depression. Amazon pancakes. The new Awaze Biomaster 850 filters are amazing. Lots of nice upgrades. I looked at them briefly when they first came out. My biggest problem with Awaze in general is just their price. They're so expensive, and it unless you really love that pre-filter, it makes it really hard to justify compared to some of the other filters that I know can just be abused or are just so significantly cheaper and a really similar level of, mechanically speaking, similar capability. Now, the pre-filter does make maintenance amazing, do not get me wrong. It makes it so much faster and easier. There's a benefit there. I don't know if that benefit is like 1/3 to almost double the cost worthy, though, every time, if that makes sense. That's my only problem with Awaze. Otherwise, I like a lot of what they're doing. There's room to improve them, though. There's room to improve them, too. I just went to check out my fish tank. All of my 75s have shrimp in them. One has mean shrimp chasing guppies, apparently, just regular Neocaridina free swimming, like it owns the place and pays the bills. One day. One day. Uh, okay, let me make sure I haven't missed too much. I'm trying to catch up. Sorry, I know my tangents are the worst. Tangents are the worst. Johnny Best. That sticker is great. Thanks, buddy. I really appreciate it. Paul Stero just sent you an email. All right, hold on, Paul. Hold on, hold on. Oh, and it's going to redirect me to Facebook? Come on, Paul. Killing me, man. Make sure my desktop audio is muted just in case. Anytime no book of face. Hold on. Oh, no. I need to see if I can, I don't know if that's the right one. Maybe? I don't think it is. I was going to try and put it on. Basically, it's a teeny tiny micro tank as the tank to put behind me. That pissed people off. Oh, man. Okay. Let me catch up. I want to try and like speed through a couple questions. I know I'm like way behind. Sabin Saint Studio. I have a 35-gallon high-tech planet tank with CO2 and an external canister filter that produces a bit of flow. What type of aquatic life would you suggest for a tank? For tank maintenance help? Well, so in general, right, it depends on the kind of maintenance you're looking to do. If you have mostly small fish, you can do a lot of shrimp. Shrimp handle flow just well. Plecos handle flow quite well, but depending on the plants you have in your tank, they might eat those plants. Swords are the primary things that they love to eat. You can do a reasonable amount of maintenance with a number of different fish who handle flow fairly well. Florida flagfish can handle flow. Siamese algae eaters can handle flow. Garas can handle flow. It kind of just depends on what kind of maintenance you need and what the rest of the tank is. So, like, as an example, if you were doing a rainbow fish tank, like this dum-dum, you can't really keep shrimp because rainbow fish will kill and eat shrimp. They just will. Even though they don't fit in their mouths, they'll tear them apart. They're jerks. But only for shrimp. They leave snails alone. So, right? So it kind of depends on, like, we need to understand the full variables of your aquarium and not purely just the flow and that it happens to be planted with CO2, right? Because if you have, like, lots of swords, you probably don't want plecos. But if you have no swords and a lot of relatively, like, spaced things and you're looking for, like, a lot of surface maintenance, you want to make sure that dust algae is not building up on your glass and stuff like that, well, then plecos become really, really great. You might look at like a bristlenose as an example, etc., etc. So yeah, those are those things I would be looking at, Salmon. Hopefully that helps out. Hopefully that helps out. Johnny from Dancefish, redfish, bluefish is coming back is interesting. Yeah. So last I talked to him, he was planning on doing so. That might have changed. I don't know yet, but I'm supposed to talk to him relatively soon, and we'll be doing an interview. Um, but he had been talking to me about potentially doing so. He was looking into it. So yeah, yeah. Johnny Best, how can you tell when to feed plants with Easy Green? So you could test the nitrates in your water at a very base level. However, what I like to do is kind of get a feel for my plant load and look at what Easy Green likes to suggest as, and I love putting suggesting quotation marks. I know somebody's gonna be like, the suggestion is a suggestion. What are you doing with the quotation marks? And what I say is, usually they suggest 1 to 2 doses a week. When I'm optimally running planted tanks, I like to split that across 7 days so that there's a small amount of fertilizer constantly being added, and constantly I mean once a day, to my aquarium. That lets me run a more like lean nutrient system to where there's constantly a lower amount rather than like a big spike of nutrients and it slowly tapers off, and another big spike of nutrients and it slowly tapers off. What I have found is that when I run the tank in a more consistent lean method, I tend to see less algae outbreaks. Now, if you are getting complacent and you're not following it super well, or you have a kind of overstocked tank and you're producing lots of nitrates, that can happen anyway, or your nitrate levels can get really high, and all of a sudden certain plants like your Anubias, like I'm dealing with right now, might start shedding all their leaves and getting kind of angry and having some rhizome issues. So it kind of depends on your maintenance schedule, what kind of planting you have in the tank, and how much time you want to dedicate. Because like for a lot of people, dosing every day seems like a lot of work. For me, it's like pump a fertilizer in the aquarium, feed the fish, watch fish for a little bit, done. Pretty easy, right? But if you don't get a lot of time to do those things, you might consider a different schedule, right? So I think that should get you on the path, Johnny. Thank you, buddy. Sevens, you were buying the company Fluval. I'm misunderstanding the table. It is April 1st. It's April Fool's Day in the United States, a holiday I hate. So it was kind of a joke on April Fool's Day, and that I'm a secret crypto billionaire, and I'm gonna buy the Rolf C. Hagen company just so I can own Fluval. Because we recently did something about a Fluval product. It's kind of a joke. Not actually buying Fluval. I'm not a secret crypto billionaire. I'm a dollar heir at best. I might have about $20 lying around. I think Fluval is a little more expensive than that. Oh man. God, how wild would it be though if they were like, yeah, we're gonna let a random YouTuber take over this company. Oh Lord. That would be wild. Okay, let me try to catch up, get some extra questions here real fast. Life was so much more peaceful and less stress in the 90s. I mean, I kind of agree to that in certain perspectives, but maybe that's because I didn't have as many things to worry about. Like in the 90s, I wasn't like taking care of a wife and dogs and fish and a house and all those things, right? It was just like, I'm a young man living at home, going to college, going to high school. I don't care. Jose Davila, I hate that we don't get kits like the Oase Scaper Line tanks. I guess Americans would never buy them since we're all about dollar per gallon DIY. I think the problem is like some people like kits, but where the kits tend to be most popular is like the really small nano tanks. So think like a lot of the Fluval tanks, like the Edge, the Chi, the I had it sitting here. Why is it escaping my brain right now? My own tank that I own. I cannot remember what it's called. That one with the front bow glass to it and the filter built into the back of it. Oh, Lord. My brain is just cooked, man. Where did you get the Rainier cap? So I bought it from the Tacoma Rainiers, which is a AAA ball club. So farm system, minor league baseball, whatever you want to call it, for the Seattle Mariners. I just bought it from their team store and had it shipped to my house. So it looks like just the Rainier beer logo on the front, but if you go to the back and I take it off and you see all my gray hair, you can see it has the alternative, like more modern logos for the Rainiers. But this is just the color combo I really liked, and so I bought it because local team and stuff. Yeah. Well, no, Bentley isn't ashamed of his kinks. That's true. I have no shame. I have no shame at all. Lonnie, any tips on lowering the flow of the FX6 filters? Okay, so Fluval has said that on the intake or outtake side, you can, and I think you can do it on the intake. Hold on, I need to think. No, intake side. Brain function. You can bring it down to like 60% because it does have those little hash marks, right? You can bring it down to about 60%, potentially 50%. I think 50% is the FX2. It's 60% with the FX6. You could ask Fluval directly. They will help you. They have great customer service. Without risking any damage to the pump motor. So you can bring those gate valves down a little bit, the ball valve that's there, and that will help reduce flow some. Now, the alternative way is getting the spray bar kit. The spray bar kit will diffuse the flow into a lot of little jets, and that will bring that flow down some. You also could get a modified intake with a sponge, because there are people on Etsy that make intake replacements for that big one that is a basically cage that can hold a sponge inside it, and that sponge will inherently slow down the flow, but that sponge will also get clogged and you will need to clean it, right? So there's a couple of different methods you could use, Jose, that should help you bring the flow down a little bit, but keep in mind, it's a fairly powerful pump. There's only so much restriction to the flow that you can do. Okay? Hope that helps. Hope that helps. Megaflex. It's the Flex. Thank you. The Fluval Flex. Thank you, Paul. Oh, my lord. And 186 element. I know. My brain, the worst, more to living. You all have fixed the problems in my brain. Johnny chose a girl over Bitcoin in 2011. I had an opportunity in like 2011, 2012 to buy a bunch, and I bought Magic instead. So I'm with you, except that I was less cool. I chose Magic cards, so Turbo Nerd, over companionship. Yeah. You're saying you're not a secret crypto billionaire sounds exactly like what a secret crypto billionaire would say. I could actually show you exactly how much crypto I own, and it is a I think I own slightly more than $100 worth of Bitcoin because I bought $100 like 4 years ago to give one of the people who worked for me a referral bonus. Because at the time, like $100 just, I was like, yeah, I can put $100 in this, and I'm not worried about it, right? And if it goes up, it goes up. If it goes down, it goes down. And it cratered to like 50 within like 3 weeks after I bought it. And it's slowly gotten back up, and I think it's worth like 130 now. So basically, not a negligible amount of money. And then I have I did a similar thing as a joke with a friend at my last job, where I bought like, I think it was $100 also worth of Shiba Inu coin, just because it's funny. And I totally should have sold it like 2 weeks into owning it because it spiked up a bunch, and I would have made a bunch of money. By a bunch of money, I mean like $30. And now it's worth like $40. I'm not the person to get crypto advice from. Also, in general, you should just not buy crypto. Because unless you got into it crazy early and all the stuff being established now, all the new coins, all the meme coins, all the bullshit that's out there, No matter what people are telling you, it's all designed to extract money out of you. It's not going to make you money. It's going to take your money. It's what it's designed to do. Unless you're very early on, all these things are designed to just continually hollow out money from certain people and funnel it all up to like a couple of people who created the damn thing. Crypto needs to be regulated, and then it might actually stand a chance. But until then, it's just full of scammers and bullshit. And I'm actually really upset that a former aquatics content creator is now pushing a crypto coin. I'm really upset about it. Because it feels terrible. Somebody that I used to love watching their content. Yeah. We went on that tangent. Johnny, MTG, Magic the Gathering's gone up in value. Haven't talked to said girl in like 12 years. Some of that Magic stuff that was worth a lot of money now is now worth nothing, though. So there was stuff that was like very high dollar value things that now have been completely outclassed and are worth like $1 when they used to be like 50 plus. So it's a take and get. It's a market thing. Pumpkin coffee market is crashing. Buy low and hold. Wish for the best. I mean, I would say you could gamble, but you have to treat it as gambling, not as investing. Crypto is not an investment, it is a gamble. And if you get that into your head, then you can make a more, what I would deem, informed monetary decision, which is to say that you are gambling. You have just as much likelihood of success putting your money into a slot machine, on a poker table, into a lottery ticket, as you do putting it into crypto. There's only like 3 crypto coins that actually have any level of reasonable investment, and I put some big quotation marks, capability, and that's Bitcoin, Ethereum, and I guess probably Solana would be the third. And I still don't even believe in any of those. If you got in on the train early, you could have made a ton of money. But it can be said the same thing if you bought Microsoft stock early, if you bought Amazon stock early. Facebook, when it debuted, I had an opportunity to buy a whole ton of their stock at $14 a share, and I did have a bunch of money set aside in my savings. It's worth $680 a share right now. Like, do the math. That's basically 60x. So if I put in some amount of money, even $1,000, that would be worth $60,000 today. But no one can time the market. The only financial advice I'll ever give you in your life. No one can time the market, and most of it is fucking gambling. I'll even swear. Normally I don't, but I will. At an hour in, we can swear. All right. Back to fish stuff. Stephen P. Yeah, on sub with a quickness. I've stayed subbed for a little bit. So for those who are asking, I'll say it flat because he can come after me all he wants. It's formerly Jadrin Aquatics. And now just Jadrin is his channel. And yeah, he's been pushing this like crypto bullshit, frankly. Bullshit. It's bullshit. Don't do it. In the very first video he pulled out, talking about crypto nonsense, I asked him very frankly. I was like, tell me all of the tech stack. Where is it actually being used? Because like Bitcoin and Ethereum and a couple of them, they actually have usage that is not just like praying for a miracle, right? The coins are representative of effort in certain things. All the rest of the coins that are out there, none of them really have any actual tech stack usage, and which is why none of them are worth anything. And they never will be worth anything unless enough people pump and pump and pump, and then get a bunch of people to buy in, and then all of them exit immediately, and it will just completely deflate and fall. Look at that stupid meme coins that have happened with that the Haktua girl or any of that dumb nonsense, right? It's all just trying to extract money out of people, and it's It's disgusting. Is that the guy with a really big wide nose? I wouldn't say he had a really big wide nose, but yeah. We're gonna end this on what Johnny just said. Johnny from Dancefish. I heard fart coin is valid because hot air rises. Top tier joke. If everyone sends me $1, I will give you 69,420 Fluval coins. Oh, God. All right, anyway. Gang, I want to thank you all so much for being here on April Fools and all this nonsense. That's how we're going to buy Fluval. We're going to make a meme coin, and somehow we're going to make tons of money, and then we're going to buy Fluval. Don't do it. Okay, I'll answer this real fast. Dr. Maz, I'll be driving up to Seattle on Saturday with a big auction. Will you be there? Unfortunately, 99% I will not. I have some stuff planned with my wife that we planned like 2 months ago, right after her surgery happened. So, yeah, there's a small chance I like dip in long enough to drop a bunch of plants off for the auction and then run away. But as it stands right now, I've been working too much to have the time at night to get all my plants organized and get them prepped for auction. So probably not going to be there. If you get up here in the winter one, though, I'll make sure I come. Or I'll just come down to an event in Portland relatively soon now that the weather's nice and driving is easy. Anyway, gang, thank you all so much for being here. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your night. As always, thank you so much for watching. And stay awesome. And don't buy any stupid meme coin BS. Crypto is a gamble. Don't do it. Good night. Oh, Lord.